Well, it's a very warm welcome to Alice Parker. It's great to have you, Alice.
Thanks for having me.
You've got a remarkable story, really, how you grew up in the Blue Mountains, a long way from the water, to end up navigating high-profile yachts around the world. But let's go back to the start. How did you get from the Blue Mountains in Western Sydney, long way from Sydney Harbour, to get into sailing? How did it begin for you?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. I've got some family that live in Newport on the northern beaches, and my cousin was really, really into sailing. And anyway, one weekend we went down to visit them, and we went to visit them at the yacht club, the Bayview Yacht Racing Association at Byra there. And while my cousin was sailing, they were like, "Oh, why don't you have a go?" So I got thrown into a Pittwater Junior, and I loved it. And then the rest was sort of history. Every weekend from then on, my dad and mum were driving me down to the northern beaches to chuck me in a PJ and go sailing on Pittwater, and it just, launched from there. It was a really great upbringing.
Were your parents into sailing at all?
Dad dabbled a little bit, but he did a few like Wednesday twilights with friends and stuff. But not really until that moment was when it all sort of took off. And then when I was really into it, we bought a North Shore 27, and Dad and I would come down on a Friday night. We'd go out to the North Shore 27 on the mooring, we'd cook dinner, and then I'd go and do youth development training on a Saturday, and he'd hang out on the boat, and then that would be our weekend.
And that was youth training where at the Prince Alfred or at Byron?
Yeah, so at Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club. So hop, skip and jump away.
So you came up through their program there with...
Yeah, so after I sort of learned to sail at Byra, I got actually approached to join the Intermediate Youth Development Program at the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club. So I started that program, and that sort of has a fleet racing and a match racing basis. We were actually sailing Force 24s, which are little keel boats, and then that progressed to doing the youth development program there, which was more match racing focus and in the Elliott Sevens.
Was that a selective program? Did that you have to get selected into it?
So you had to apply and you had to meet certain criteria. So you had to have certain sailing skills, I guess. And then so I did that for quite a few years, probably 6 or 7 years, sort of through high school, and then once I first started studying.
And was that all skills required, like helming and trimming and the whole thing, or was it just helming? What were your expertise?
We got to do a little bit of everything actually. So you obviously ended up specialising in a certain area. So usually you make your way up the ranks. You start on the bow or in a sort of a float sewer position, and then maybe you get to trim a sail, and then eventually you get on the main sheet, and then maybe you have a little steer. But I really settled into sort of that main sheet trimming position, and then kind of being a bit of a tactical head on the boat. That's where I really thrived.
So I guess we'll get to it a bit later, but I guess at that stage you had a bit of a feel for what makes a boat go fast and what makes a boat go slow.
Yeah.
Would that be right?
Yeah. No, I really liked the element of, getting the sails trimmed nicely, and match racing, one-on-one, fastest boat on the track generally is the winner. So that was a pretty big goal.
And I guess you met a lot of people who are now friends that came up through the program with you.
Yeah, and I mean my closest friendship circle are all sailors now, and my husband, in fact, is a sailor, and we met through that youth development program. So it's pretty cool. And
that was a pretty good program that the Prince Alfred were running, or still run, I guess. Isn't it?
They still run a really good program. It was Tommy Spithill was the lead coach, and Katie Spithill also helped. And I remember Nina Curtis teaching me how to jibe a pole and end-for-end pole for the first time when I was like 16, so it was pretty cool.
Well, I think all yacht clubs, like the cruising yacht clubs certainly, and they run an excellent program here as well, and there was a lot of inter-club racing, I guess, wasn't there?
Yeah, I actually remember a really pivotal moment was there was an inter-club regatta here at the CYC, and Mum and Dad, we booked the hotel up the road, and it was a big thing. We came down for this inter-club day. It was just a day of racing, and it was back when I was in the intermediate youth development program, so before I graduated to the higher level. And it was such an exciting weekend, racing on the harbour and these big boats at the CYC, and it was cool.
So how was schoolwork going while all this was happening?
Well, I was a bit of a nerd at school, pretty competitive, so I'd kind of really dig in hard for the week. It was actually really good. Mum and Dad were pretty stoked that I found another outlet, because I'd work really hard Monday to Friday, and then it'd all go out the window on the weekend, and I'd just be 100% into the sailing. So, yes.
So you did your HSC and got through all of that. Where did you go after that? What happened then?
Yeah, so I actually did the International Baccalaureate, which is like the international version of the HSC. Finished that. I did quite well and got into a law degree. which I thought was what I wanted to do. I got about 5 weeks into it and realised that pretty quickly if I wanted to do law, I wasn't going to get to go and do as much sailing. So I took a gap year and I spent some time sailing. I went and did some racing on the International Women's Match Racing Circuit with some of the girls I raced with at RPA. I got a job at the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club in the sailing office, helping run the Coffs race, and I also helped run the Harkin International Match Racing Regatta, so that was really cool. Kind of got to the end of all of that and went, oh no, I have to get some sort of real job or some sort of qualification. So I actually enrolled in a physiotherapy degree and did that through Sydney Uni.
And you qualified?
I did. I got the piece of paper. I saw that one out.
But let's go then. How did ocean racing come on the scene for you? Because obviously you're getting the end of your youth match racing and all of that, youth sailing. How did you get into ocean racing?
Yeah, so it was actually really cool. The coach at the time, Tommy Spithill, when I'd finished school, he'd put together a Martin 49 program where we were going to do the Pittwater to Coffs race, and that was sort of our first, chance to go and do an overnight yacht race. Anyway, so we all, bartered for positions and managed to get selected for the team. And I'll never forget it. That first night at sea was just perfect. We had every star in the sky, and I think it took us 24 hours to get there. It was a really quick race. There was phosphorescent dolphins, and it was just amazing. And I thought, you know what? Offshore yacht racing.
It's always like that.
This is what it's all about. And, lo and behold, it wasn't always that way, but that's definitely when I got the bug. And then, I started racing. I think I did another race on that Martin 49, and then got involved on Pretty Woman, which is the FAR 45 or IC 45 that belongs to Richard Hudson up at RPA.
And Richard, I think former Commodore of the RPA, he always took a lot of young up-and-comers in the crew, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been an awesome mentor. So he's always been, it's always been a boat that, through the years, kids have gotten involved in, or youth have gotten onto, and they've always had an opportunity to do a job on the boat that's not just sort of sitting on the rail, whether that's, getting your hands dirty on the bow or driving or trimming. And it was a really cool pathway to sort of progress on. And
And it's a pretty good boat, that Pretty Woman. It's done very well. It's always up there in the division, isn't it?
Yeah. And it does a lot of sailing. It's out nearly every day of the week, even now. It's pretty cool.
So then did Hobart race come on the scene for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had my eyes on doing a Hobart. Basically, like, one of my mathematics projects at school was on the Hobart race.
Really? Talk about that, mathematics project.
I did a statistics assignment where I compared the waterline length to the finishing time.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty lame, but it was good. So I was always obsessed with the Hobart race.
So just go back to that. How did it work? What did you do?
It was a very structured assignment. We had to just
This is at school?
This is at high school, yeah. So we had to pick two sort of variables. So you could either go out and, get people's heights and genders or whatever it was. And I went, I'm going to do sailing. I'm going to do waterline length and how long does it take the boat to finish the race, and see if there's a correlation between the two. And obviously there is. But that was my project.
Have you released it?
God, no. I think we all know the answer. But yes.
I think you asked fussy. Anyway, that's how interesting.
Yeah, so no, that the bug, I had it for a long time. So I did quite a lot of ocean racing, looking to get my skill set up so I could do an ocean race like the Hobart. I sailed on a boat called Swish with Steve Proud. We did Hamo Race Week. I did some Gold Coast races on Pretty Woman.
As a crew or?
As a crew, as a crew. So I was trimming, usually primary trimmer. And then on Pretty Woman, I'd get to do quite a bit of driving as well. And then, I got to do my first Hobart. I think it was 2019, and I was a trimmer for that race.
On Pretty Woman?
On Pretty Woman, yeah.
And the days and nights weren't always with phosphorescence and dolphins, was it?
No, they definitely were not. Although that first Hobart was pretty smooth sailing.
2019,
yeah, it was pretty good. It was
reasonable race,
pretty much a downwind race, and then we drifted through Storm Bay,
yeah,
which was very frustrating.
Well, that's the norm, isn't it?
Yeah, you get what you get.
So where do we go after 2019 with Pretty Woman?
So I did my first Hobart race, and then there was this whole buzz around two-handed sailing, and I thought, wow, what a great way to keep building up my skill set and get across all the different roles on a boat. And so myself and another girl, Bryony, we started looking at putting together a two-handed campaign and sort of talking to people about how do you get the skills to sail two-handed, how do you get the boat, where do we go from there? And one of the really cool things was, as I was having these discussions and sort of chasing that pathway, Richard Hudson said, hey, look, I need a navigator on Pretty Woman. Would you like me to teach you? And so he sort of pulled me every Friday afternoon. We'd meet up at the yacht club and on the boat, and he'd sit there and taught me all about, basically everything he knows.
You must have had an interest in mathematics, obviously, did you? Or...
It's funny you say that. I never really connected the dots, but I think I've always kind of had like that pattern recognition. But I did like theatre and history and arts at school. Yeah, anyway, long story short, now I'm doing a mathematics degree. But so that was sort of where all that sort of started.
So did you navigate a boat to Hobart? Or?
Yeah, so I did actually navigate Pretty Woman to Hobart the year after that, I think it was. COVID fell into the mix there.
Yes.
So I was doing a lot of this training in the two-handed stuff during COVID.
Right. I guess with two-handed, you've got to cover all the skills, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Navigation, steering, trimming.
Everything, yeah.
Rigging. Yeah.
The rigging, getting your hands dirty.
Yeah. So were you looking at getting it to go to Hobart two-handed?
That was the goal. So the goal was within a few years' time to do a two-handed Hobart race.
Right.
As that was all sort of coming together. So I did navigated my first race on Pretty Woman.
Yep.
And I think that was in 2021. And then the goal was to do 2022 two-handed.
Well, then we'll get into things that didn't work out too well for you.
Yes.
I know it might be a little difficult to talk about, but I know you're happy to talk about it. What happened?
Yeah, so we had a fantastic opportunity. We were given a boat called the Fire X2. Brand new boat, fabulous opportunity, amazing sponsor. And unfortunately, during one of our qualification passages...
Now, this is with Claire Costanza.
Yeah, so long story short, Claire joined the team and we were going to do the Southport race as our first sort of hit out together, see how the pieces fit together, and a really good training run as our lead into the Blue Water Point Score Series. And so we had to do our 100 nautical mile qualifier. So we'd spent weeks and weeks training up, we'd spent plenty of time on the water getting ready, and then we launched to do a little 100 nautical miler.
Jaunt.
And
this was, I must say, it's in midwinter, isn't it?
Midwinter, yeah. Yep. So the Southport race is in July, end of July, so we were launching to do our qualifier in June. Maybe it was actually end of June. Anyway, so we launched midwinter, and halfway through the overnight passage, our keel failed and the boat capsized. And so we were in the water.
So we're off Wollongong?
Yeah, so we went down to Wollongong, and it was just off Wollongong that the keel failed. Which in hindsight was actually quite lucky because it's a major shipping area, and that's one of the reasons we ended up getting rescued.
So the boat went completely upside down?
The boat completely flipped, and we were in the water. And it took about 15 hours before we were actually picked up by a Navy vessel that was in the area.
So how did that rescue happen?
So there's a really fabulous report that Australian Sailing's put together with all the nitty-gritty details of how it all went down. But in essence, essentially what happened is we had some failed safety gear. Our PLB didn't transpond, the life raft was inaccessible. Lots of fantastic safety lessons for sailors if you can go and read that report. But we ended up actually getting our distress call out on an Apple Watch. We spoke to 000, who got my husband's phone number. Well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but got his phone number, called him up and said, hey, we just got a message from a boat. We think it's a hoax. Do you know anything about something called Nexba and, they're capsized? And he said, yeah, no, they've been missing for 12 hours. Please send the chopper. So they sent the chopper.
And then how did you get rescued?
So there was actually a ship, a big freight ship that had passed us earlier in the morning. So we capsized around 1 o'clock at night, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, this big ship went past us, and we were going crazy, of course, jumping up and down. And it sort of slowed down and then kept going out to sea. And we thought, okay, they didn't see us. We're pretty small, all good. Someone else will come. And then when the distress message got out, they obviously started broadcasting it to anyone in the area. And that ship had pinged something in the water. They thought there was a container or something. They'd seen something disturbed in the water. So they went, oh, what if it's that? What if it's...
And it was you guys.
And it was us. So the ship turned around and came back to us. And it was just the most amazing moment ever, because we sort of were sitting there and this ship was coming at us at full speed. And I went, wow, I hope they've seen us. And they literally were probably within about 100 metres of us. And I remember seeing the guys come down from the bridge with their hands behind their heads going, oh my gosh, and us going, oh my gosh, we're saved. And then they didn't have the facilities to pick us up or the ability to pick us up, but they radioed the HMAS Brisbane. And the HMAS Brisbane is a big destroyer ship. So they came, deployed a rib, the rib came and picked us up and took us up onto the ship, and they came and brought us into Garden Island.
So did you have survival suits on, or what did you have on?
I wish.
Yeah.
I was in my wet weather gear, and I luckily had a life jacket on, but we were just in wet weather gear, and
It must have been cold.
we were hypothermic. Yeah, we were pretty chilly. It's amazing what shock does, though. You just sort of,
So you could climb up on the upturned hull? How did you get up on it?
So we were trying all night, but it was pretty slippery. The boat had stern-hung rudders, and so we actually put our legs over the stern-hung rudders and hung onto those for a bit. And then once the sun came up, we managed to kind of I managed to actually boost Claire up, and she managed to grab onto we had water ballast tanks with a scoop. It's like a Venturi. We had the Venturi open. So she grabbed the Venturi and then got onto the sail drive. And then I was able to pull myself up with a rope.
And you played games while you were out there, didn't you?
Yeah, we played I Spy.
How'd that go at night?
Claire wasn't a huge fan of that one. I Spy, yeah, she was like, come on. But yeah, we're pretty close, as you can imagine.
I mean, obviously, could you see the lights on the land, or you're probably too far?
We could. So when we went down, there were about 3 or 4 ships near us. So we could see the land, we could see Wollongong. We weren't too far offshore. But,
Did you ever think that you might have to swim?
We talked about it, and obviously sea safety survival training, we just knew that you have to stay with the boat. And I'm so grateful for that training. Honestly, it's why I'm still here, having that sea safety survival training background, yeah.
And the HMAS Brisbane took you to where?
They took us to Garden Island, which my husband worked at the time. So...
Hello to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, we went to Garden Island.
Was the boat recovered?
Yeah, the boat was recovered. So the boat actually drifted ashore a few days later onto one of the beaches down on the south coast. And so it was recovered, and yeah, all the bits and pieces found.
Did it take you long to recover from all of that?
I mean,
mentally and physically?
Yeah, I was in hospital for a couple of days. We had essentially overexertion injuries, but we're pretty lucky. We came off pretty unscathed with no major injuries. Took me a few weeks to be able to walk normally again from all the bruising, and then I actually jumped on Pretty Woman and did the Southport race, which was...
So you didn't go back to the Blue Mountains and say never again?
No, and everyone thinks I'm crazy for it, but I just knew that I still had a passion, and it's still a sport that I loved, and did that race, and I was so glad.
Would two-handed racing still appeal or not?
Yeah, no, so I still have been doing a little bit of two-handed racing. So last year did a bit of sailing on the J99 Jupiter. I've been sailing with Andy Offord on Borderline. And then, just sort of dabbling here and there with some coastal stuff. So it's still definitely on the radar.
Well, then we graduated to more into navigation. Would that be right?
Yeah, so I did the Southport race, and then... I'd actually been doing some sailing on Ichiban before all of this happened. So through my navigation stuff with Richard, I joined a couple of courses that Will Oxley was running, and sort of kept upskilling that way. And then, I got a gig sailing on Ichiban.
That was down in Adelaide? Was it the Port Lincoln
series?
So
I did the Port Lincoln race. I did a COFS race with them. I did a little bit of some of the 52 circuit here in Sydney with them. And then, just kind of kept launching from there, eventually getting a ride on URM.
Now, you talk about navigation, but there's a lot more to it. But you're delving into the weather side of things now, is that right?
Yeah, so one thing I found I really find interesting is, the weather, and it's such a big part of it, We've got such fantastic weather models and forecasting now, but it's so often you go out sailing and you go, hang on, the forecast says this, but what we're getting is actually this. And it's been something that I've just really been interested in is, interpreting the forecast, but also, understanding, okay, what could actually happen with that information. And so,
why the weather happens, I guess. Or
why the weather happens, and also how can you get a little bit of an edge on the people around you by understanding what's happening and why.
So how are you doing that? Are you studying for that?
Yeah, studying. So I've actually decided to go back to uni. I'm retraining. So I'm still doing a little bit of physio, but I've just re-enrolled in a Bachelor of Science, and I'm going to major in mathematics so that I can do a diploma in meteorology.
Right, and that will integrate in the whole navigation process.
Yeah.
So you're obviously delving into the mechanics and the physics of it all.
Yeah, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And even just like the course I'm doing at the moment, I'm doing a programming course as well, which has been super helpful for understanding how a lot of our like processes work on racing yachts, which feed us all of the information about the elements around us. You know, the weather, the wind, direction, how fast you're going. Yeah.
So you are in high demand, obviously, as a navigator now, a high-class navigator, because you're navigating world-class boats like URM. You got Hobart, Rolex Hobart before last. You got second overall, two alive.
Yeah.
Clobbered in the river, as often
Yes.
happens. But last year, not so good. The mast came tumbling down the first night.
Yes, that was a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
what's your program now? You've got a bit on your plate coming up this year?
Yeah, this year's looking really busy. I'm really excited to be going overseas. I'll be doing some stuff in America. I've got the Transpac lined up, a Fastnet race, and then I'll head to Hamilton Island to do Race Week. So there's a few programs that are
All
going.
on good boats. You're doing Transpac on Zeus.
Yes.
You're doing the Fastnet on this lovely Swan 53 with, is it Lisa? No,
Linda
Linda
Goddard.
Goddard.
Yeah.
Joe Goddard's sister, well known here at the club.
Yeah.
And then
I'll
Wild
do-
Oats 10
Yes.
for Hamilton Island.
Yeah, we'll take the 66 up. So yeah, it'll be a really, really cool year.
And what about this year's Rolex Sydney Hobart race, the 80th? Are we
Yeah.
locked in for that?
Watch this space. We're going
Okay.
to hopefully get the mast up and go from there.
So URM again?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We get the rig up and yeah. So it sounds like hopefully that will all come together sort of mid-year and yeah.
Do you have a favourite boat?
It's hard. I mean,
Probably Pretty Woman to be up there, wouldn't it?
it's
really?
pretty up there,
Yeah,
yeah. It's a pretty great boat. I mean, I really love the two-handed sailing. I had a really good time sailing on a Figaro 3, a little Beneteau with foils. I think one of my like favourite sends was doing a Pittwater to Newcastle race on that. And I think we averaged 17 knots the whole way there. The boat's only 30 feet long and we beat 45, 50 footers. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool boat.
There's a massive short-handed circuit in Europe, isn't there?
Yeah, huge.
Double-handed and single-handed.
Yeah, and the Moccas are pretty cool.
Would you do
Cool
that?
boats. Oh, I don't know if
Vondy
I don't know if I
Vondy
can
Glow?
do it. Don't know if I could do a
Bridge too far.
solo.
A bridge too far.
More than
yeah.
happy to help them out from the comfort of my home. But
Yeah. Well, Alice, it's a fantastic story, really. As I said at the beginning, growing up in Blue Mountains and then navigating on world-class yachts, it's a real credit to you. So good luck.
Thank you.
Keep going well, and everything you do, I wish you great success.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great.